welcome to Journey Online. Quick thanks for being with us. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving time. You've eaten all the food and most of the leftovers, and now you're in a stupor trying to stay awake. That's where we'll start today. Hey, I want to start out by saying this. The goal, I like to know the goal of things before I start. I like to have a feeling what we're trying to accomplish. I'll tell you the goal of today. Because I think it would help everybody in doing what we do. Let me just tell you, the goal is not more guilt. The goal of what I want to talk about today is not to make you feel worse about you, not more guilt. There's a reason for all that all we really want to do is make us more aware. The goal is that you're more aware. I'll just tell you why I think that way, is because guilt is a horrible motivator. I don't know if you grew up in a home, grew up going to a church, I don't know, in school, where if you've ever had anybody in your life who guilted you into things. Guilt is a horrible motivator. The problem is it leads to short-term action. The reason people use guilt is it often gets a reaction or an action. Sometimes people get what they want because of it. What people don't always take into account, it leads to short-term action, but long-term resentment. As a church, it's a big piece of why we do what we do the way we do. We don't believe guilt is the answer. So if you're turning this on today, my goal is not to get you to feel worse about you. Man, you've got in-laws for that. You know what I'm saying? You've got the people you work with for that. You sure don't need it here. Our goal, though, is to raise awareness of some things, because we believe this. The fact you're watching tells me you are probably somebody who is who's trying to move forward in life, trying to keep growing and becoming and take next steps. So we're working off that assumption, and if we raise awareness of a need, my assumption is that you'll apply it. So today the goal is not more guilt, but it is more awareness, and that's where we want to start. We're in a series called Buzzwords, and we have been looking at specific words as we've worked through. This is our last week of it. This one coming right after Thanksgiving, it made perfect sense to use the word gratitude. And so when I started studying a couple weeks ago for this, where I landed is, what that's going to sound like is me saying, you ought to be more grateful. What's the matter with you people? Look what God has done, which we've said every Thanksgiving since the beginning of Thanksgiving. And where I landed was a little bit different place. I don't want to talk about gratitude. I want to talk about maybe the other side of the coin, which is ingratitude. And I don't want to talk about ingratitude as what's the matter with you people? Why are you so ungrateful? Why do you have so much ingratitude? If that's even a way to say that. It's not where I want to go, but there is one little component of gratitude or ingratitude that I want to look at. It's been super helpful for me, so I'm excited to jump in. So I will just start with this. I read a book the last couple of weeks. It's called Gratitude Works. It's by an author, Robert Emmons. He's kind of the expert who's done maybe more scientific study around gratitude than anybody else. He's kind of the expert on the subject. He posed the question, they posed the question to thousands of people when it comes to their children, what do parents say they worry about most? And then he read through the responses. You would think it could be, I mean, in today's world, who in the world knows, but it could be like crime, drugs. It could be, if you're into that world, the climate. It could be about the economy and all of the things that go with that. So many things, habits that kids can get into. Actually, the answer was really surprising to me, because 2/3 of the people who were surveyed said this: their biggest concern is their children's sense of entitlement. I didn't see that one coming. 2/3, 66+% of the people who answered said their number one concern is their children's sense of entitlement. What they're saying is they feel like their children have an overblown sense of entitlement. Well, you don't have to look around long to understand that. If you don't see that, then you have that. That's a great way to diagnose this. Oh, I don't really notice that. Okay. But most of us, when we look around, we see people who feel like I deserve just because I am. Oh, I'm here, therefore I deserve whatever. It's my right. And sometimes that sense of entitlement seems to have a massive or profound effect on how we treat life. It certainly does have a huge effect on gratitude or this issue of ingratitude. Let me say one more thing. When these 2/3 were asked, where do you think that sense of entitlement comes from? I found this a fascinating answer. Over 85% of them said it comes from us. Well, one, that's incredibly honest and incredibly true. That the things we complain about in the next generation, oh, by the way, is a result of the generation before. When I complain about what's the matter with people, hey, listen, I've been a contributor to this society. It's people who are like us that have led to the people like them. That's where they come from. And we can't blame everything on us, but we have to take some of the credit and some of the blame. And so where we land is that this issue of entitlement, this issue of ingratitude, is something that has to be dealt with. So I want to kind of start with this statement. Ingratitude is incredibly unattractive in others. I'll tell you a story. A bunch of years ago, I had an opportunity to sit with a family that's outside of my immediate family, and on Christmas Day, and they're opening presents. And they had a little one, and this isn't meant to make the little one look bad or anybody else, but it's just the way it happened. Little one, I mean, it's America, and it's people who are well cared for in America. This was. And so everybody opens presents. Now the little one gets to open up theirs, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, just guessing. And they start to open presents. They open it, oh, good. They open the next one, good. They've got a pile of presents. It's like, open it. They're not playing with them. You know, sometimes kids will open it and go, ah! And then you go, no, you've got to open the other ones. Not this kid. This kid was like, open it, open. Through the whole pile, like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12 presents. Gets to the last one, opens it up, sets it, looks at mom and goes, is that it? I'm going like, close the jaw, you know, is that it? Is that it? Obviously they were expecting something that wasn't there, or more of something that was there. Is that it? The mom is just beside herself. One, it's embarrassing because other people are sitting in the room. And two, you know, she obviously can't do what she wants to that child legally. You go to jail for that kind of stuff. And it's just this moment, and I'm like, wow, seriously, did that just happen? It's this point. Ingratitude is incredibly unattractive in others. When you see somebody exhibit a lack of gratitude, it turns your stomach and you're just like, oh, stop. Just don't do that anymore. Make it stop. When it's a kid, you at least go, they're a kid. When it's a grown-up kid, you just go, you're still a kid. Stop. Come on, seriously. Ingratitude is very unattractive in others. The tough part is, it's very difficult to see in ourselves. As a matter of fact, when asked in a different survey, when asked, are you a grateful person? This is one of those, hey, you can't get people to agree on anything in today's world. It's a 50-50 split when you say, is it day or night? Is it anything? When asked, are you a grateful person? Less than 0.5% of people said, no, I'm not a grateful person. 99.5+ % said, yes, I'm a grateful person. Here's the reality. Ingratitude is very difficult to see in ourselves. And I want to get to the core of that. I do think some of us need to build gratitude in our life, but there's something bigger at work in this. I'll just do it this way, kind of a weird diagram. Let's just say in a relationship, there is give and take. There's in and out. There's, it's two pieces. If a relationship is a relationship, there's more than one person. And so there's a lot of dynamics that go on. And I just want to say that in relationships, there is a full loop that has to happen. It's not just how I see life, but it's how I see life and you see life. And together we come together. That makes a relationship. That's how it starts. When it comes to gratitude, this is one of the really confusing things, because gratitude is not really a thing. Like, you can't touch it, you can't buy more, you can't just make some. It really is much more. Gratitude is what we're going to use the word, it's felt. I feel gratitude. It's something inside of me. It's hard to measure. How much gratitude do you have? I don't know, 12? 7 pounds? a gallon. I mean, it's a really difficult thing. So gratitude is felt. And that is one half in a relationship that's really important for us to feel gratitude for the person we're with, for the things they do, for the situations that we encounter. We need to feel gratitude. But that's not the end of it, because me feeling gratitude is not enough. There's a second piece, and this is kind of where we want to land today. It's the expressed piece. In a relationship, it's not just me feeling gratitude. For instance, me with my wife, feeling gratitude that God has given her to me for my life, that God has placed her influence and her kindness and her support and encouragement in my life. Me feeling that is great. And I do, by the way, I do. But listen, me feeling it and never expressing it to her doesn't close that relational loop, that gratitude loop. It has to look like this, that gratitude is felt by me and it's expressed by me, here's the key phrase in this one, to her, to the person. That is the one who has gratitude. There's a recipient of my gratitude. And when that doesn't happen, there's a problem. And sometimes the issue isn't that we don't feel enough gratitude. Because if you say, are you a grateful person? Yeah, I'm a grateful person. Most of us feel like we are. We may be a little bit wrong, but I think sometimes we probably are more than people think or more than we think. I feel like I'm a very grateful person. Sometimes I realize, though, I'm not sure I'm great at expressing that gratitude. So it's kind of where we're wanting to dig in. Let me just make this statement, and it's kind of our landing point for the day. If you don't get anything else, make sure you land this. Unexpressed gratitude, that's what's happening in me, is experienced, this is what's happening in somebody else, as ingratitude. It's not a measure of how much gratitude I have, because unexpressed gratitude is experienced as ingratitude. Does that make sense? You see where we're going with that? That I can have all of the gratitude, whether it's by the inch, by the pound, by the liter, whatever it is, I can have tons of gratitude. But to the people around me in my life that I love and care for, or God's given me influence in, my expression of that determines how much it is felt by them. And when they don't see the expression of gratitude, normally there is an assumption of ingratitude. Well, that's not fair. Well, I'm not saying it's fair. I don't know what fair means. I'm saying it's the way it is. It's the way it is with you. Not just me. I'm not just saying you need to do it with other people. I'm saying that is the way it is. I already got talking about this week, and it jogged my memory to a time that was exactly like what I heard about, where he said, I sat down with a guy, kind of an influential guy, and I'm wanting to learn from him. The guy's a big CEO of a company. Lots of people work in his company. And he said, I sit down with him, and I know he's got limited time because he's got a big meeting. And he said, as we're talking, I realized we're going long, and he said, I apologize to him. I said, I'm sorry. I know this is running long. If you need to cut this short and get back, I completely understand. In the middle of saying that, the guy cuts him off, and he says, oh, no, don't worry about it. Here's the statement. They all work for me. They'll be fine. Now, some of you, when you hear that, there's something inside of you that just goes, you got to be kidding. Some of you, when you hear that, go, what's wrong with that? That's because we're wired very differently. This guy said, and this is me as well, when I hear that, and I've had the same conversation with a couple of people, hey, it doesn't matter. They work for me. They can wait. It doesn't matter. In other words, they don't matter right now. I matter far more than they matter. It's so dehumanizing. This guy said, when I heard him say that, all I remember of that meeting is that statement. I don't remember any of the other things he said. I don't remember any other life or leadership lessons. What I remember from him is that statement that just says, oh, they work for me, they don't matter. That piece of being taken for granted, that you matter far more than they do, or I matter far more than they do, there is nothing that stings a lot more than feeling like you're taken for granted. Sometimes we feel like we're taken for granted, and we may not be. It's just that this issue of learning to express gratitude is not in play. But you can think of times, and you can think of people right now in your world, guarantee you, where you feel like that is your story. When you talk to them, you seldom get their attention. here's the crazy thing. Sometimes they may tell other people what a good person, family member, employee, friend you are, but when you're with them, you don't feel that from them. It's because they really struggle. They may feel a lot of gratitude, but they really struggle to express it. So with me? That's where we're going. There is an amazing example of this in Scripture. It's one of my favorite spots in the Bible. There's all kinds of layers to it. We won't have time for all of them, but I kind of want to dig in with a couple, and it's where we'll kind of focus the rest of our attention today. It starts with this. It's in the book of Luke. Luke is a guy that didn't walk around with Jesus every day. He investigated everything about Jesus. He was like a reporter. He searched out, he interviewed, he did all these things, and then he wrote what we call the gospel or the life and times of Jesus through the pen of Luke. And so he is a guy who's thought a lot about, he writes this in chapter 17, he says, as Jesus continued toward Jerusalem, he reached the border between Galilee and Samaria. It's kind of important because if you put a map up here, the border between Galilee and Samaria is just this kind of random, far away, not a lot there. Why would anybody be there? It's kind of like that place. It's not there or there, it's just in between there, if you know what I mean. That's where this would be. And as he entered a village, this is kind of important also because Galilee was a place where Jewish people lived and were accepted. Samaria was a place where they weren't. Samaria was a place where people who didn't fit anywhere fit. They weren't really Jews. They weren't really, they were just some people in that day would say they're just Samaritans. A lot of people would say it doesn't matter, they work for me, about them. Yeah, they don't matter. Don't worry about them. That's where we find ourselves. As he entered a village there, it says 10 men with leprosy stood at a distance. That makes complete sense in a lot of ways. In that day, leprosy was a massive, it's a little bit of an issue today. It was a massive issue in that day. One, that it seemed to be incredibly contagious. It was almost always fatal. What it did is it left you in a place about halfway between life and halfway toward death. You weren't dead because you were still alive, but you weren't really alive enough to live. One of the things about leprosy is it eats away, especially at nerve endings, and people lose their feeling, and often how they end up dying. They lived in a world where the only way you survived was by physical labor. There weren't any people who worked remotely on their computers, okay? If you wanted to live, man, you planted stuff and built stuff. If you wanted a place to live, you had to construct a place. And working when you had leprosy was so dangerous because you would injure yourself and not know you injured yourself. You could cut yourself and infections happen, all of these issues. And so typically in this day, the law said that if you had leprosy, you had to be proclaimed as unclean. So you would go to a priest or someone like that and they would say, you are unclean. Now you can never be where everyone else is. Matter of fact, the law said you had to live outside of town where these guys live. So what lepers often did is they just formed their own colonies of people who together would scrape out what little bit of an existence they could have. So when it says there were 10 men with leprosy and they stood at a distance, this last part is just duh, because that's all they had the choice of doing. They couldn't not stand at a distance. It's a little bit like COVID. It is social distancing, except on steroids. They would have had a mask covering their face so they wouldn't affect anybody else. They would have done everything possible because people were scared to death. They were even made often to wear a bell or something around their neck so they couldn't sneak up on anybody and get too close and announce them. It was a horrible life. That's where we start. Jesus is in this place that nobody wants to go, where nobody would be except a bunch of lepers. They approach him. They stood at a distance, and then this happens. Crying out, this is the lepers. They said, Jesus, Master, which is an odd statement. Usually the only people who made this statement were people who were followers of Jesus, people who were really into him. Following. Well, they weren't. They didn't follow anybody because they were lepers and couldn't. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us, which is what you say when you have no other options. I'm not sure these guys believed that Jesus was going to make a big difference, but they had heard stories and rumors, and they were thinking, hey, if he can't, he can't. We're already between life and death. But if he can, at least we have a chance. Jesus, have mercy on us. And he looked at them and he said this weird thing. He said, go. Well, that's not unusual because these guys heard go a lot. If they showed up, sometimes they would, at a distance, they would beg for help. Hey, we're lepers. What are we going to do? We can't live. Could you give us something? And people would throw them or lay down some money or some food, and then they would leave and they'd come and pick it up. Go was a word they heard a lot. People was like, go away, leave us alone. No, we can't help you. Leave us alone. Stay away from me. He started with the word go, which would have been the most familiar word. They stood at a distance. Have mercy. His answer was go, but he didn't just say go. He said go show yourselves to the priest. To which they would have to think, show the priest what? See, the only way you could go back to a normal life was to go back to the priest and have them look at you, examine you, and give you a clean bill of health to proclaim you fully alive again. The problem was they didn't have anything to show because, as best we can tell right now, they were still full-blown lepers. Go show them what? Hey, look, it's us. Still got it. What are you going to show them? By the way, priests don't like this part of their job. You don't just stop by and say, yep, I know you were supposed to stay away from people, but would you come here and look at me? Priests hate that. And so go show yourself to the priest makes no sense. Unless you believe that this guy has something that nobody else can offer. And so his statement is, I want you to trust me enough to go and show yourself to the priest. And I want you to assume, and he's assuming two or three things. One, he is assuming that they're going to have enough faith to obey him before it makes complete sense. By the way, that is what faith is. It's when we choose to obey, not because of something that's happening right now, but because of something we believe is going to happen. When I was raising my kids when they were young, I used to say this, hey, listen, I need you to trust me. I'll explain anything. Hey, I want you to go do that. Why? Do that. Why? Why do I have to? My deal was always this, hey, listen, what I expect is for you to obey, and I'll explain anything afterward. Why did I have to do that? Why was that so important? I didn't think that was fair. I'll talk through any of it at length. But what I won't do is say, until you understand and agree, you won't do it. You obey, then I'll explain. Faith very much is that way. Faith is, I accept because of who this guy is. I accept it and I do it trusting. Remember, we talked about that last week if you watched online or if you were in person. Trust is a big piece of that. I trust you so much that what you say I will do with belief that down the line it will explain itself or you will explain it to me. That's what he tells them. And then look in the next verse. It says, and as they went, so they bought it. Other thing Jesus was assuming is that when they went to the priest and showed up with 10 healed lepers, there's no way the priest is going to be able to explain this. He's going to say, how did this happen? They're going to say it was a Jesus guy, and this was going to further cement his reputation as more than just a guy who likes to talk about God, but as a guy who was sent from God. So it's a really big deal. As they went, it says, they were cleansed of their leprosy. Somewhere between go and, hello, Mr. Priest, would you look at us? Somewhere between here and there, God healed them. The leprosy was gone. This amazing story. Can you imagine for them? I don't know how that worked. I wish I did. I wish I had like a video camera, had a drone flying over watching. I don't know if when they were walking, because they probably had sores and they probably limped a lot and had issues. Some of them may have been missing some fingers or toes or an ear or a part of their nose. I don't know if when they were walking it was like, like the foot being healed or the hand coming back or your I don't know what that was like. I just think it could have been amazing to watch. I don't know if right when they got there all of a sudden it was like wham and it happened, but it had to be amazing. But that's not the end of the story. It would be a great end of the story if it were, but this is where the story heads. One of them, when it's over, they go see the priest, it's over, they have life back. One of them, there were 10, when he saw that he was healed, came back to Jesus. I mean, if you're not good with math, that means 9 didn't. One came back to Jesus. When he got there, he was shouting, praise God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. He expressed his gratitude. He closed the gratitude loop, praising God, and he fell to the ground at Jesus' feet, thanking him for what he had done. 9 of them didn't. one of them did, and every time I read this passage, the way we use it is, what's the matter with the other 9? What's the matter with those guys? He gave you your life back, the least you could do. You ungrateful, you lack gratitude, whatever an intelligent person would say about that, try to fill in the blank with that. You ungrateful people. What's the matter with you? And then we apply it this way. Don't be them. Don't be ungrateful. Well, can I just say this? I'm not sure they were ungrateful. There's nothing here that tells us that. What it does tell us is that he closed the gratitude loop. He said, not only do I feel gratitude, but I'm going to express it. He comes back to Jesus and throws himself at him. And he's like, yes, thank you. You've given me my life back. And then the writer, because Luke does this all the time, he mentions, by the way, this man was a Samaritan, which probably implies that the others weren't. One of the remarkable things about this story is people who didn't typically end up together, when you go through life-threatening things, a lot of other garbage just doesn't mean that much. Your politics, your lineage, your color, when you go through devastating things, you pull together. It says this man was a Samaritan. The reason I think Luke loved mentioning that in his is that over and over through Luke's book, as he wrote, he talks about reaching the people who were kind of forgotten, reaching the outcast, reaching the left out, reaching the non-traditional. It's not just for the people who grew up hearing about it and sat in church. That Jesus' message was one that was often sent to people who other people would have forgotten. And I think he loved saying, and by the way, the guy who came back was the Samaritan. It may be because this guy had been through the most alienation. Before he had leprosy, he was alienated. He had been through the most pushback from other people, but the one that came back was this Samaritan guy, and when he did, he was off the chart excited. He expressed his gratitude to Jesus. Jesus asked this question. Sometimes when you ask a question, you're asking a question. Sometimes when you ask a question, you're making a statement with a question mark. This is a statement, a pointed statement with a question mark at the end. Jesus asked, didn't I heal 10 men? His issue wasn't, I stink at counting, man. Counting has always been a struggle for me. How many were there? His statement, not a question, his question that was a statement was simply this to everybody who was standing around. Where are the other 9? Seems odd that only one would come back and close this loop, but it is the way it happened. Our assumption is that the other 9 weren't grateful. This guy was grateful. Maybe that's not true. Maybe this is the reality. Maybe they felt gratitude. Because I bet they did. There's no way you could go through this and not go, wow. Can you blame somebody who hasn't seen their wife or hasn't touched their family, who hasn't been in anybody's company but other lepers for months, maybe years? Can you blame them if they ran straight home? Does that seem like such a horrible thing? I suspect for most of these, they were like, oh my God, literally. This is bonkers. This is nuts. I got to go see my wife. They probably felt it. The problem is they just didn't express it. And I'll come back to where we started. This is what Jesus says to round it out. Jesus said to the man, the one who came back, stand up and go. Again, he tells him to go. This time a whole different go. You're free now. Stand up and go. And then he makes this statement, your faith has healed you. The reason you've been healed is because you accepted what I said even before it had come true. Your faith has healed you. This guy got it. He still got home. He still did all the other stuff. The other guys, though, maybe need to remember this, that unexpressed gratitude to Jesus in this moment communicates ingratitude. The reason he said, where are the others? He could know whether or not they have gratitude, but what it communicates when we don't express it is that we don't have it. Is that true? Maybe not. Maybe so. We don't know. With you, with me, when I don't express my gratitude, it communicates to the people around me that I don't have it, that there's ingratitude. The loop is not closed, and until the loop is closed, relationships have a gap or a hole in them, a needed thing to happen. Give you a couple thoughts, and this is kind of where we'll finish. Express gratitude, period. That's the point. Express it. If you feel it, express it. If you don't feel it, work on that. If you don't find yourself feeling gratitude, begin to focus on what God has done and what others do for you. But let's just live on the side that you feel it but don't express it. Learn to express it. I don't know how to do that. Do it badly. Here's a hint. Try to express your gratitude in a way that fits the recipient. Expressing it helps even more if you can express it in a way that means a lot to the person to whom you're expressing it. Let me see if I can explain. There are some people who expressing gratitude like just going, oh, you're so awesome, you're in front of a whole bunch of people. Maybe they're super shy. Maybe the last thing they would want is a spotlight turned on them. That doesn't feel like gratitude, that feels like embarrassment. Well, then you wouldn't bring them up here on stage and say, oh, let me tell you about this person. They're so awesome. I love them so much. Let me tell you all the good things. What you're trying to do is express gratitude. What you're doing for them may be the worst way to show it. For some people, the way to do it, I'll just say it for me. I'm a detail guy. I like details in everything. I like choosing really exact words in these things. I like trying to do things that matter that other people may not even notice. I like details. So if you want to express gratitude to me, the way to do it is to notice something that other people wouldn't notice. Is to notice, man, when you said that, or when that was written that way, or when you did that, man, I really noticed how often, hey, Chris, the other day I watched when that person walked in and you bent down and talked straight to their kids face to face. That meant so much to me that you cared so much, not just for the kid, but the family, that you gave your attention. Like stuff like that is through the roof for me. That's my language, though. For some people, publicly going, woo, how about this guy? That would be just right for them. Just try to express gratitude in a way that it fits the recipient. You may be sitting there going, I just don't know that that has to be my responsibility. I just want to tell you, it doesn't have to be. It's just what people who care about people do. The more you care, the more you think about how to do it. It's like buying a gift. Buying the right gift for the right person is what makes it super special. It's not just buying a gift. That's just part of the game. Let me give you one more. Ingratitude feels, when it's not expressed, it feels like rejection to most people. Is it rejection? Maybe not. It doesn't really matter because it's what it feels like. And what it feels like is what people respond to. Let me just tell you this. I hear people all the time who lead teams or lead groups or lead their family, and what they want is their family to be so devoted, their team, the people that work for them to be so devoted. I want them to be willing to run through a wall. It's like a coach. I want my team to be willing to run through a wall for me, to like eat glass or crawl. You know, I want that kind of devotion to what I do. And can I just tell you this? Ingratitude will always feel like a rejection. You can live with ingratitude and you may keep their hands. It may not mean that your kids walk away and just never talk to you again. It may not mean the people that work for you just leave your company and say forget it because they need something there. But I will say this, you may keep their hands, but you'll never have their hearts until we close this gratitude loop with feeling it and learning to express it well. And this is a big deal. And this is why Jesus worked so well. When he came to people, he won their hearts because he got both sides of this loop over and over and over again. It matters so much. So really, here's the question. Will you be like the 1 or will you be like the 9? The statement is this: you decide the outcome, one expression of gratitude at a time. Will you be like, when I say the 1 and the 9, I don't mean the grateful and the ungrateful, because we have no clue if it was 1 and 9, grateful and ungrateful. It may have been 10 really grateful people, 1 who expressed it well and 9 who didn't. It may be 9 who expressed it somewhere else, but not to Jesus. But the first place to go was Jesus. It's like when you were a kid and you received a gift and your mother or father were standing there, you know what they always say? Say thank you. Thank you. It's that moment. And what they're trying to teach you in that moment is right now is the time to express that. It's not, are you feeling gratitude? It's that I want the person who gave you the gift to know you're feeling gratitude. And it's not, will you ever feel it? It's don't miss the opportunity that right now is the time to say thank you. Not 6 weeks later to go up and say, hey, mister, thanks for the gift. That's not going to mean the same thing. There's a window. And in that window of time, expressing gratitude is so important. What I love about some of you that are watching this that I know is you're so good at this. What some of you do around Journey and the Journey Influence world is you say things all the time that just say, hey, I'm so grateful for that. Thanks for that. You don't know how much it means. It's not just that you felt it, but the fact you were willing to say it means a ton to us. Sometimes doing this, you just feel like you're talking to the air. And you forget that there's people there who are listening, and some who are sitting with families, and some who have conversations afterward, and some who put these things into practice. It means so much to us to know from somebody, thank you. I'm not saying that so you'll say something else to me. I'm just saying it matters. Don't underestimate what expressing your gratitude means. Don't underestimate what relationally it does to close that loop of felt and expressed gratitude. And by the way, it even moves the heart of God. Weren't there 10? Man, be the one. Be like the one. And hey, I don't know how to do it. It just happens one act or expression of gratitude at a time. Do the best you can not to let the opportunity pass. Don't underestimate what it'll do, and kill it this week. Be a person who feels it and expresses it, and each time you do, it reflects on your Father who is in heaven, because it's exactly what He came to build in you and me. There you go. Let's pray. God, help us be people who feel gratitude for all the things you've done, who are so far past entitlement. I don't want what I deserve. I am grateful for what you've given me, and I express it to you. I do that right now with you. I say, thank you, God, for giving me your Son. Thank you, God, for giving me forgiveness. Thank you, God, for giving me hope. Thank you, God, for giving me this outlet to talk to people who want to move forward and become something better tomorrow than we were yesterday. Help us with that, we ask. In your name, amen. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.